long ago has it been since I baptized you?
October 24th,
October.
2022. So it's been 6 months.
Okay. And that's why I put in the little question. I was like, how long is it? I didn't know how long it's been, but so it's been back in October.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if you remember, but when we met for her baptism, I told you, I said, look, God's going to use you. Right? And I was like, eyeball to eyeball, God's going to use you. And I could tell even then you were kind of like, I just need to get some stuff kind of.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
You know, I just got to get some stuff squared away. Just let me worry about me. But I think that's awesome. You know, so look, walk me through, you know, kind of, what it was that kind of got you to the point where you wanted to be baptized, and kind of, you know, your kind of your path of faith.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I had to hit rock bottom first, for sure. I hit rock bottom. I was partying, drinking, drugs, all the bad things you can think. I don't feel like anybody was there to tell me, like, you don't have to do this, you know? Or like, there's other ways to, I just didn't feel like I had any support. And the fact that I kept going in that path, all the support I had just kind of crumbled. And so now I was left with nobody. I had ruined my whole life, and I couldn't blame anybody else for what I was going through, because at that point it was my fault. And then this guy came into my life, an older guy, more of like a uncle figure, and he was very godly. He was an addict before he died and met Jesus. And I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it. And so now that's all he does is share the gospel. And he told me one day, he was like, I think your life is about to change. Mm-hmm. And he knew that I had just went through something really hard. He named where I was at when I went through it. And he said, I had a dream, and God told me, you're about to change your life. And then for like a year after that, I changed my life. I stopped partying, drinking, drugs, all that. I was working, getting my life together, back in school. But I just believed in God and love. That's what I called him. I was like, I believe in love. Mm-hmm. And so I was on the right track, but I just hadn't got to church yet. And so then I started coming to church. I was still skeptical. I would like sit in the back and come like every other Sunday. And then care night. I joined care night, and that's all it took. And I was scared to get baptized at first, but then all the girls in the group told me, they were like, you're never really going to be in a perfect state, because I was trying to sort out my P's and Q's, get my life together, because I needed to be perfect before I'm going to get up and on a stage and get baptized in front of people. And so after they told me that night, like, you're never going to be that, I realized, and I was like, oh, well, all right, I'm getting baptized.
You were in the Life Healing Choices group, weren't you?
Yeah.
It's powerful. That book, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable.
She's reading it right now.
I was reading it this morning.
And you know, and just that book's meant to, you go through that book with others. You don't read that book.
Yeah.
It's a book you do, you know, and you have to have others, so that even that community, having them around, you know, I know the group you're talking about, you know, having them, because you don't have to be, you know. And so many people, I really do think that I've so many people I've encountered in my life that are like, you know, let me get myself cleaned up before I start doing that, man. I'm like, look, it's exactly what Satan wants you to do. It's think that if you do something, God's going to love you.
Yeah.
Right? And God says, I don't want you to come to me that way. I want you to come to me just how you are, warts and all, and I'll do that, because it is all about His glory. You know, I mean, I think you could say now, man, this was all the work of God. There was no way that I did any of this. That God did that. He sends that, you know, that guy, that uncle figure into your life at the right time, right? He changed his life at the right time so he could, you know, come and speak to you at the right time. Even on Sunday, I think I'm going to, I asked Ashley this morning, my wife's Ashley, I said, do you have any pictures of Dakota? I mean, not Dakota, of Lainey and Sadie when they were little at our house? Because, you know, when we were thinking about just, Ashley and I were thinking just how amazing, you know, you being there in our house with Sadie and us, you know, just knowing you, but that leading us to pray for you. You know, even in those, you know, middle school and high school years where, I mean, things kind of fade away with friendships, when you and Sadie, y'all still remain friends, but it wasn't, Lainey's not coming around the house anymore, but we still thought about you, and we'd see your mom, and we'd see, other family members at church every now and then and stuff. It was cool. It was cool to see God. I mean, he just puts all that stuff together, and that's one of the things on Sunday I'm hoping to share was the Rebecca story with Isaac's servant that goes out to find him a wife. Yeah. He when he sees Rebecca and she does the feeds the camels or waters the camels like he was like, this is it, God's done it. Yeah. He put me in her path. This is my servant's wife. I mean my master's wife. This is awesome. They sit him down for this supper, and they are wanting to kind of celebrate him and everything, and he's like, before we get started, let me tell y'all why I'm here. And he starts to recount all that God had done to put him there. It's just cool. Yeah. And so I think sometimes in our life, when we actually look back on the landscape of our life and do like a timeline, we can say, oh my goodness, he was there. Yeah. And he was there. And he was there. Mm-hmm. And here he is. And man, see, that's another thing, just to predict. Yeah. That's why when you come to me and say, I want to be baptized, and I look at you and say, hey, he's going to use you. I can predict that because I know how God works. Yeah. He's going to, which is cool. I mean, and he has. So that's the next question. Okay. Look, when you guys came in a few weeks ago, and I started asking you, I was like, hey, Dakota, tell me about being baptized. Why you want to be baptized? Yeah. You got all emotional, right? And started crying. And I mean, I just stopped and was like, hey, what's going on here? Why are you doing this? Yeah. Okay. So look, and you said something which is really I guess the main reason why I wanted us to do this was you said, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And this, I'm assuming, is I want to lead people to Jesus. Mm-hmm. I want to see the response in a friend or the response in another person's life to this. So unpack that.
It was a very humbling experience that, when we were having that conversation, that's why I started crying, because it was so humbling. I realized I didn't do anything, and it was for so long, I was doing everything, but in all the wrong places, and I wanted to control everything around me. I wanted to control how people saw me. I wanted to control the relationships, whatever level. I wanted to be in control, because if I wasn't, I was freaked out, because conflict and chaos scares me. And so when I got in a relationship with God, it's a constant let go, give it away. And so when I finally learned I don't have to carry it anymore, I wasn't trying to control everything. I let God control me, and it's everything around me would just work out if I was just patient. And so that's all I did. I let go. I really didn't do anything. That's why it's all I knew to say, because it was the first time in my life that I actually didn't do anything, and something happened, All the whole time I'm sitting here trying to control everything, and everything's just going crazy, and I'm just making everything worse. But then the one time I stepped down from the throne and give thanks to something else, get out of my controlling tendencies that I didn't really mean to pick up, but different survival tactics you pick up, and had to unlearn that with God. And it was just the most humbling thing ever, that the one time in my life I didn't do anything, that everything happened.
How it's amazing to me how it's the complete opposite of what the world teaches us, that how a humbling feeling can make you feel so good. Yes. Mm-hmm. Just being so humble that God used me to speak eternal, life into somebody else. How does he do?
Because I'm not. Who would listen to me? You know what I'm saying? I don't got. What do I got something to give, but I don't got much. So I knew I was not operating off my own strength in all of our conversations, because I was plotting on you. And so I would pray before every conversation. I'm like, God, I can't do this. Like, I cannot speak. Will you just speak through me, please? And I guess it worked.
Yeah, and look, that's another thing on Lord willing on Sunday that this servant, when he goes, he has to load the camels. Okay, when Abraham tells him, look, you go find a wife for my son Isaac. You go to this. It's a good little trip. It's a 450-mile trip. He said, you load. So he's got to load the camels. He's got to load all the water. He's got to get servants together. It's got a bunch of stuff has to happen. When he gets there, okay, when he finally gets there and he arrives, we notice in the Bible that he prays. And he says, God, you have led me to this place. Please let this happen. Let someone come. And all these girls are coming to water these or get water. So when they get here, the one who does this, and he's praying. And then when Rebecca does it, it says that he pauses. It's kind of like this silent moment of discernment. And then the Bible says, just kind of so he can know that God had done that. So this guy, he's constantly doing what you're doing. Lord, I don't have the words for right now. And Lord, I don't know what to say. And then when there's a look, in people's eyes when you can just tell, hey, God stirred in their heart for that. Yeah. And you're like, okay, here we go. Lord's working. Yeah. Right? So it's pretty. I think it's just the word humbling. There's no other word that I think that describes that. And I know that the world kind of has that as a bad word sometimes, being humbled or, that you need to be humble, boy. Like that's a bad spot. Yeah. It's a great spot to be in. It has been for my life. I can't help it. Everybody knows I squall. That's my squalling is, hey, God's using me. Me. Are you serious? It's pretty cool. Look, Dakota. We talked about this just a little bit ago, but look, walk us through, kind of what brought you here, because there was a day that you came to church here that you guys encountered one of us. So kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'd been coming here for a little bit at this time, and I really, really enjoyed it. I just felt like every time I came, it was speaking to me in a sense of what I was going through at that certain time. But then that certain morning, I was really upset and I was really sad, just everything going on in my life. And I just felt like, not that I needed church, but I felt like, I just felt something in me that was telling me like, hey, let's get up, let's go, let's like get your day started in a good way. And so then I was just like, okay, like I hear you, I'm gonna go, because I've known God like my whole life, but I've never fully put my trust into him and just let him kind of take control of everything. So I definitely did have to hit my rock bottom too, and I did multiple times before I finally was like, okay, I'm done. But then I came to church Sunday morning, this specific Sunday, and I was just planning on sitting by myself, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go in there and maybe this will make me feel better. And then I saw Lainey, and she was like, hey, like, come sit with me. And I was like... And
you guys saw each other outside because...
Yeah, outside walking in.
You had said that. Like, you were sitting here already.
I was sitting down already. I was ready for church, waiting on my family. I'm like, let me just go out to my car. I think I wanted some money or something, maybe for the offering. I don't know.
Yeah.
I usually don't go back outside.
And then she saw me, and she was like, hey, are you here by yourself? And I was like, well, yeah, I am. She was like, why don't you come sit with me? And I was like, okay. Like, and this is the first time we had seen each other in, like, years.
Didn't like each other.
Didn't like each other. And, like, this first time we spoke in person, and I was like, all right. Like, okay.
She said, I would love to.
I was like, I would love to. Like, please. And then we just went out to her car with her to get what she needed, and then we came back in, and then...
and I point something out a while ago. You were saying, every time I came here, it spoke to me, and then that morning something was telling me, and then you changed and you said, that he, when we first time we had talked, I said, hey, it and something have a name, right?
At the time, it was like, that's not what I was referring to it as.
Exactly.
But then it happened, and it was like, that's God. That's been God the whole time, telling you, hey, like, this is what you've been longing for. I've been right here.
I think that's important for people too, is to give it and something a name, because I've heard that so many times. I try to encourage them, hey, was it like something you ate?
Yeah.
Was something an undone potato that's got your stomach? Because I doubt that's what it was.
Definitely not.
It's He.
It's He.
He's speaking to you. We had just baptized a kid in UC last week, Jacob Jensen. And I asked Jacob when he told me he wanted to be baptized.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Jacob, I said, how long has he been telling you this? And he said, oh man. He said, it's been about a half a year. It's been at least 6-7 months he's been. And I said, he's the hound of heaven. He'll run you down.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, Spurgeon, called him he's the hound of heaven. And I said, he was running you down. He said, oh man, yeah.
He won't
And
stop.
on Sunday when I baptized him, I had said that. I told people there, Jacob and I was conversation, and I looked over and a young man that I had actually taught in high school and coached baseball in high school 20 years ago, who comes to church now, and I'd baptized him. And I can remember him at a softball game that I had an encounter with him, and God was talking to him when I was speaking, and really just preaching to him at the softball game.
Yeah.
And he said, Coach, he said, something's just been after me anyway. And I said, and I looked at him, I said, you need to give something a name, Daniel. And I said, because that something's Jesus, and you know it. And I said, he's chasing you down. And I said, and I looked at him, he was a hunter, he's still a hunter. And I said, the hound of heaven's after you, and he will always get his man. And when I said that Sunday, I looked over, and he's standing in front of me, and just tears flowing down his eyes. And when I said it, he looked at me, and he went, because he knew, so it's cool. But I think that's important to point out for people is that it and something, God's, it's God.
It's God.
And the world can say love or they can say a higher power or whatever, but it's not. We know that is Jesus and the Holy Spirit of God chasing us and speaking to us. I think that's really, really cool. Even you going out to get something that day that was unusual. People say coincidence. I like to name that stuff.
I don't believe in coincidence.
And
No.
that's a recounting of the path of God in our life, and I think that we need to be, I guess the word is attuned.
Yeah.
We need to be, praying in the morning. God, lead me to somebody, and when He does, ready to kind of pounce on that situation when He says, and even if it's weird, stupid stuff like, hey, get up and go outside in your car and get some money for the offering plate, or go get your coffee out of your car because God might have somebody in your path that day.
Yeah.
And so it worked out.
It worked out wonderfully. Look at it.
Everybody tells me how superstitious I am because I think everything's a sign from God.
I mean,
Everybody.
It is.
That's how they describe me. I'm like, okay, that's fine. If that's what you want to call it, that's fine.
Well, look, I do believe in the sovereignty of God. I've always tell people, I believe in the sovereignty of God so much. If I dropped that pen over there, and he knew I was going to drop it, He knew the exact moment it was going to hit the ground. That brings great comfort to me. That doesn't scare me. In fact, that gives me comfort to know that no matter what, tragedy or triumph, He was in it, and it's okay, and that's okay. But in our, especially in just this life of evangelism, this life of leading others to Christ, we need to be so aware of the presence and the directions of God and His Spirit to be able to say this direction or that direction. Paul, when he's going over to share the gospel, it looks like he's going to take a right turn and go toward Asia. But God says no, you're going this way, and thank God that he turned and went that way. So look, one thing, Laney, you'd said, this is all I want to do for the rest of my life. Okay. Is there a feeling? What's the feeling that you get when you get to see Dakota baptized? When you get to baptize Dakota, you know what I'm saying? I like emotion. By the way, people say sometimes God's an emotional God. He created us for emotion. I think it's something that's a very, very good thing. It can be a very bad thing, but I think it's a very good thing if we harness it. So I like to talk about how that makes you feel.
It made me feel very proud of myself, but I had to constantly tell myself that I didn't do anything, and I know that I didn't do anything, but it was like a milestone in my life where I was finally able to do something good for somebody else.
Well, you told me when we met, God's told me that I was going. He's told me, He said, you're going to baptize somebody, right?
Yeah. Literally 2 weeks before you decided you want to get baptized, I like to go up there and pray where I got baptized, and I was praying, and I looked at the pool, and I'm like, God, I can't wait till the day you let me baptize somebody. And I'm thinking like I'm gonna be couple years older.
45 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like late 20s, like 28, 29.
2 weeks.
Not
later.
2 weeks later. Not 2 weeks later. And I didn't think it was going to be somebody that I cared about so much, you know, or somebody that inspired me from what she was going through, because we had the same friends. I heard from the grapevine. I knew what was going on in her life, and it was breaking my heart for her. And I was praying for her, and even though I didn't like her, that was, not that I didn't like her, because once you get a certain age, you kind of let go of all the stuff you did in high school, you know. But I was praying for her. I was like, no, you know, nobody deserves that, and I wish somebody was just there to help her, you know. And we had a mutual friend, and I was telling her, I was like, you talk to her, because I can't, but like, just text her, be there for her, be somebody she can talk to. And then we just ran into each other.
And now it's crazy.
And look, it's crazy. What about, you know, God has multiplication, not addition in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, we teach that. So, you know, when I see you, I tell you the same thing I told Laney. God's going to use you.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's, you know, you're going to be praying over or baptizing somebody or not, that's completely a God thing. We'll watch and we'll wait and see. But He's got to be. You have to. Or maybe you should answer that and not me say you have to. That's a leading question. Do you believe, by seeing what you've seen so far, that hey, God does want to use you?
Yes, I do, definitely. Especially in my family, I feel like I can be a very good example for the people in my family. Just to see how drastically that my life changed with Jesus in my life, I feel like I can be an encouragement to my brothers nonetheless either, because I have influenced them in ways that I shouldn't, and I'm not proud of it by all means, but I feel like if I can just make this change and like let them see like how much happiness and how much more at peace I am with everything, I feel like that can lead them in the direction that I'm going in, and then they can continue to lead others and just keep spreading all the love and the word of God, because it's changed me.
I mean, and even now
drastically.
you're kind of diving in to learn more.
Yeah,
And that's
I wanna
what we're here
learn
today
more.
for. Most
Yeah,
of the things we'll study the Lord's Prayer and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you're diving in to learn more about it, because I mean, I think there is a level of equipment or equipping that needs to take place. You said something last time. You was like, "Train me to do this.
What's happening?
Train me to do this." You know, as a pastor, that's like that's the joy of. I mean, you, know,
Yeah.
you wait for someone to say. You know, you're hoping that that's the. You know, Jesus tells His disciples, you know, follow me, and I'm going to make you fishers of men. Make you fishers of men. You're not fishers of men. You're fishers of fish. You're tax collectors, and you're turds. You know, and you don't get it right because they don't get it right. They're fumbling, stumbling. The Matthew's gospel is more or less of the foil of the disciples. They just never get it right. You know, and Jesus is like, how long must I put up with you? You know, all the time. But He said, I'm going to make you this. I'm going to equip you to do that. And you know, like you're talking about, you know, in your life, there is a transformation that takes place within our heart that we want to be repentant, and we want to shun the sins that we were once a part of. But at the same time, the transformation is the way we view other people. You know, you could have still had some kind of hatred and whatever in your heart towards somebody that you didn't formerly, you know, care too much for. But Jesus said, love your enemies. That's why He broke your heart for Dakota, you know, and others. And He's going to break your heart for other people, you know. But you know, for God to be able to say, I'm going to change your heart. You know, so for family to see, that's what I always tell people, especially in discipleship, is repentance is more, you know, it's kind of less about, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's more, I'm going to be who He wants me to be now.
Yeah.
And so now I'm a repentant person. You know, I say I'm sorry, you know, instead of I'll fight you for that or something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just a different heart that takes over. So it's pretty neat. So look, anybody in your life that you're just really praying for?
Yeah, I have a specific person. Definitely have a specific person.
And you have to name that.
I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna name. But I definitely do have somebody in mind. And again, I just feel like I can be a light in his life that he needs, and just kind of point him to the peace and happiness that he deserves to have. Because I know he's not lost, but like in a sense he is. He's just, and I feel like I can be that person in his life that's the constant, trying to encourage him, trying to push him to come to church and have a relationship with God. And I think that I'm going to be the only one he'll really listen to and follow after. So
See, that's good.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing. Lord willing, it's just Tuesday, but Sunday is coming. But that's one thing is I want people. There is somebody that only you can reach.
Yeah.
You're the one. You're the one God made and created, gave you the experiences, the past experience. There's a thing. Rick Warren wrote a thing called the shape, or he talks about the shape of people. And SHAPE has a little acronym because it's Rick Warren. That's what he does. He talks about everyone has their own spiritual giftedness, their own hearts, their own attitudes, their own giftedness, their own personality, their own experiences that's leading you to some, it's leading you to one person.
Yeah.
I don't want to be someone who says no to that. I think I have in the past, I think all of us have, but I don't want to be that anymore, and I don't want anybody else to be.
Yeah.
So
I heard my friend say something the other day after we left church, and he didn't want to come to church. We barely got him to come to church. He's got addiction problems. One of our closest friends just passed away in December, and we've all been kind of going through it together. And he came to church, and on the way home he said, "Well, I seen it worked for Lainey, so I can give it a try." And I was like, "That's why I do this."
yeah.
Yeah.
And okay, the why you do it. It's another thing. From what I read in the Bible, and it's not so clear, but from what we read, we can get a glimpse of this, is that we will be given crowns. People who endure in faith. Okay, people who endure in faith. They endure, whether it's suffering, they endure hardship, they endure this in faith. They will be given crowns. That's what it says. And it talks about, like, that's also for people who share the gospel.
Yeah.
Will be given crowns. Almost of good job, my faithful servants. You do this, but Bible also says that when in Revelation, that when John sees Jesus, it says on his head was many crowns. There were many crowns on his head, and so it's as if we're given these crowns, but we give them right back to him.
Yeah.
So I think that's I
that's
can't wait.
amazing.
I can't wait to that. So I want to labor down here because I want a crown.
Yeah.
I want a crown. I want a big one. I do. I want to lead as many people to Jesus as I can. And so it's kind of like matchmaking. I want to set you up with somebody. Some of that turns out bad. You're like, dang, I wish I would have set them up. But sometimes it's like, this is a really good person. I want you to meet them. So that's kind of like what we're doing.
Yeah.
Is I want you to meet Jesus, which is what the servant does in Genesis 24 when he goes to find a wife for Isaac. And he's like, my master has like all this stuff, and he's like really, really wealthy. And, I want you to come back. And he's convincing enough, persuades her enough that she goes back on her own will. And he gets to put them together. It's like a matchmaker. It's like, she sees Isaac from afar, from a ways off, and then he looks back at her, and it says that they come. I mean, it's
It's beautiful.
it's cool. Yeah, it's beautiful. So, I think that gives us a little bit of a glimpse of that heavenly thing. That I'll get emotional now because I'm going to get emotional on Sunday. I've never preached that not. But to see y'all, to see you walk up to him, and I get to stand back and I get to watch him really embrace you. And he's embracing you now through his spirit. I see that all over y'all. Right? He's hugging y'all. He's loving on y'all. That thing you wrote on Sunday about that love that you wrote for her or to her, or y'all wrote together, however that was, it was beautiful. But talking about this love that you're going to experience, you get to experience that. Paul says that it's in part here, though. It's not full. It's you look through the glass dimly. But, in heaven, there's going to be, I get to watch you walk up to him. And that's That's going to be a special moment for me. You know, because you said a while ago, it makes you kind of feel proud of yourself. Well, you ought to feel a little proud of yourself. Jesus tells us, he tells us, by the way, you let your light shine before men so that they might see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to let your light shine. You're supposed to do good works, which there's no better work in this world than leading somebody else to Jesus and saying he loves you, you should love him, here you go, you guys hook up. You know, so there's a joy in that. But I want to say, so here's my question, I guess, all that. You know, what's y'all's prediction? I mean, can you predict how that's going to make you feel? You know, does that stir you to live for that in some way? That's for both of you, because I think God's going to use both of you for that.
Is really all I live for. I'm about to cry.
I think it would be the most fulfilling moment in my life.
Almost that's what you're made to do.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I feel like I want to, like, go off somewhere for months and, like, stay there and just work for him and spread his word and lead more people who don't probably even never heard of him before. I don't know, like, that's just what I feel like I want to do. And I just want to keep doing it for him and not for me anymore, because I feel like it'll be the most fulfilling moment in my life just to do that forever.
And doing it, you know, for him means just life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just living life for him. I tell
Just
people
for
all the
him.
time, you know, and I'm sure I'll share on Sunday, but my goodness, you know, I was a baseball player, you know, and there was nothing like striking out somebody. I love the feeling of throwing a fastball by somebody or throwing a changeup and making them swing and miss, you know, and go kind of ha ha. It was a great feeling, you know. As a coach, it was a wonderful thing to teach that to somebody and then watch them go do it, you know. I think it was more fulfilling as a coach to see them do it. Now, my life's changed a little bit because, I mean, you know, I was a school teacher for years, and so I was around, you know, just tons of different backgrounds of people, and so prayed for kids all the time, prayed for students, prayed for teachers. Now it's kind of like I'm on this side of it coaching now, and I'm training y'all, but to see you get to do it. You know, to see you come in the other week and just you're so emotional because God used you to do this. And I mean, I've told you y'all that day, this is what you're made to do.
Yeah.
You know, I hope others catch it. You know, not only through just you know, today, but I mean, I think that's what we do here. Our mission at Hope Community Church is to help people far from God find hope in God. You said a while ago, he's not really lost, but he's not, right? And that's my thought. He's far from God. Your job's to get him a little bit closer. You know, that's what we do. So, anyway.
Yeah.
What else? Y'all got anything else?
What I would say to people who never share their faith,
Did you know that the estimates are that 98% of the people that have been in church, in American church in the last 50 years, 98% of them have never got to experience what you guys have got to experience. Do you know that?
Wow.
98%.
That's
so.
insane.
Yeah. What was you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I think a lot of people have vulnerability issues now.
I do too.
I think that it's a very common plague. Like, men are scared to cry, and women just got to be perfect all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I think the biggest part of church and God is vulnerability. And if you have no idea what that is, how do you even go about that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How do you lay down the fear of being rejected or it not working for you? And right now we are also in a period of instant gratification. You know that.
Yeah.
And we were watching Jesus Revolution, and one of the biggest things that spoke to me is the boy was scared of church because he said, what if this is just another high? What if this is just another rush of something, and it's here and then it goes away?
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. I think it scares people of something so real. That's why I wrote the poem, because like, how can you just walk into church and hear all this hibby-jibby and believe it? You know what I'm saying? You can't believe it. It's an experience. You know, but how do you make it understandable and not sound like crazy talk. And I think that that's because people are scared of vulnerability. They're scared to try something new. And I watched a TED Talk one time on vulnerability, and this sentence changed my life, and it changed the way I enter situations and how I go about them. If you're scared of vulnerability, you got to stop yourself before you go into any situation and say, hey, there's 2 R's. They're going to rejoice with me or they're going to reject me. And that's not to put a negative connotation on the situation, but it's like, hey, this can go one of 2 ways. They can rejoice with me or they can reject me. And now since I've pointed that out, I'm not going to be as let down if they reject, because I told myself, like, I have the opportunity to go both ways. It's 50-50. And I just feel like it's hard to be vulnerable in a world that breaks you down so much. Like, people build up this shell. And, like, I did too. I had to I'm still working on it. But it took a lot of learning about vulnerability, not just, reading the Bible, but I had to research, like, how do you be vulnerable? It's a block. And it's a hard one. Because most of the time you don't know it's there.
I can't stand to be rejected, I mean, no one likes that. It's not fun. And Chandler preached a great sermon on Sunday about, and he used Genesis 24 passage as well. But it's the master that we're promoting. And the ultimate rejection is we want to make Jesus. We want to present him, But the decision's got to be theirs. I love the fact in that passage that when the servant, that he realizes that the family, desires for her to she can leave, but they say, you would get this with their family. She's, the mother comes in and says, can she not stay just 10 more days? 10 more days with us. I mean, because the mama's gonna, she's gonna miss her daughter. And the servant says, please don't delay. There's an urgency in decision making. Please don't delay. But they said, well, look. He says, bring her in and let her decide. And she says, I'll go with him. And I mean, for him, she could have, just rejected it totally. But he knows what he's there doing. He's there to promote the master, and what he's presented about the master. He trusts in that it's going to be good enough. And if it's not, Abraham had already told him, look, if this doesn't succeed, if it doesn't, if you don't find anybody to come back with you, you're released to this. Your job is just to be obedient and go do it. And so that's that is our job in sharing our faith. It's our job to share the faith in love. I think it's been done poorly sometimes. Without love, it's just if you died today, what's going to happen? I heard a lady tell me this week. She said, it's not that you need him if you die today. It's you're going to need him because you may live tomorrow. Exactly. Isn't that brilliant? Exactly. It was great. You're going to need Jesus because you're going to live tomorrow. Yeah. And you're going to need him for every day. So I think that's it impacted me when she said that.
Also, being our age, it's hard to share.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's hard for people to take you seriously when, like, I don't know about you, but I feel like Christians have this outside view of hypocrite. Hypocrite.
Very much so.
And especially us being young, like, it's hard for us, because we are hypocrites. I'm a hypocrite.
I definitely am.
And it's hard being young and talking to other people and you being a hypocrite.
And then,
So.
Well, see, look, you said a while ago, I think that the biggest thing for people to understand, maybe not the biggest thing, but one thing, is that we're not following a teaching. It's a teacher. This isn't an it. It's a he. This is a person. This is an alive. He really did raise from the dead. And he really is alive. And he wants to change your life. He wants to be a part of your life. We're not asking you to follow certain rules or follow those things. Because if that's what it is, we're all going to fail at that. Yeah. I think I read an entire book about a bunch of people failing, right? It's called the Bible, and about someone coming in to say, I see their failures and I will save them from that. And that's gospel. That's good news to people. Instead of it's bad news that if you'll just clean up and do right, God will love you. And I think that's the biggest hindrance that has been since the beginning of the gospel. Jesus faced it, Paul faced it, we're going to face it. is just really getting the good news of this is Jesus. It's all about Jesus. It's a person who saves you, okay? And it's difficult for people to lean into him,
Yeah,
to be
definitely
vulnerable
is.
to a person, to be vulnerable to God is very, very tough,
It's hard.
right?
I just started learning how to pray because it takes so much vulnerability, especially praying with someone or like over someone. It's hard.
And it's hard for me praying privately because God looks at me and says, boy, I know that's not what you're going through.
Yeah.
And I know what's on your heart. So why don't you just go ahead and stop with
Just
this
say
stuff
it.
and start talking to me.
Yeah.
Like you need to talk with me. That makes, instead of
Yeah.
asking me for all these other things, when you've really got this on you. So there's a vulnerability that has to happen.